Continuing on with our exploration of thesis and reading, we are going to now go into the details. Overview for this lesson will feel like we're doing writing again, and that's good. So, first off, let's take a look at that big triangle, get used to exactly what it means one more time. And then I'll go ahead and overview those big questions, the who, the what, the how, etc. What's the difference between a major detail and a minor detail? And we will begin learning how to annotate just a little bit. So, here's our triangle one more time. We've got the topic, we got the thesis, and so now we're going to be concentrating on the major details and the minor details. These are more specific than the thesis, although they always relate back to the thesis. If you remember, the minor details support the major details, and the major details support the thesis. So, how do major details and minor details support the thesis? Well, they support the thesis by answering important questions like who, what, why, where, when, and how. To give you examples, here's some things from the topic of ludology, that is, the study of game making. So, topic is ludology. Ludology, the study of games, is a popular and important concept in the design of video games. Who, what, why, where, when? Well, who studies ludology? That could be a major supporting detail. What are some rules in ludology? Every field of study has certain rules, and you have to follow them, otherwise you're doing a different type of science. Why is ludology important? When did the study of games begin? And where do people study ludology? And finally, how does ludology make a great video game? So, here's some examples of my thesis, which hasn't changed, and here are some major supporting details. Now, are they answering a who question, a what question, a why question, or a when question? Well, ludology became a popular field of study in the late 20th century. Who, what, why? That one answers a when question. Ludology remains an important part of anthropology and the humanities. What? Well, those are two big subjects that you study when you go to college, so that probably answers a who question. Who studies ludology? However, the entertainment industry depends on ludology for the next great game. So, the entertainment industry is made up of people. This again answers a who question. Who studies ludology? Another example. In the 1900s, anthropologists studied and cataloged the games of Native Americans. Well, that's interesting because it's kind of answering two questions, isn't it? It's answering a who question, but also a when question. In the 1980s, the world saw the explosion of video game development. Okay? That major supporting detail just answers a when. Dr. Consalvo was one of the first to study them from an academic perspective. Well, that one should be really obvious. That answers a who question. So, now that we've kind of gotten over the big questions that major supporting details answer, what's one way that we recognize them? Well, we recognize major supporting details and minor supporting details, usually based on keywords. And here are some examples of keywords that you'll find in paragraphs that let you know a major supporting detail is coming. We got first, second, third. That almost always means major supporting detail. The only thing that almost definitely means major supporting detail is probably finally and lastly. If I get a paragraph and it's the second one from the end of the essay and it says finally and lastly, I know in that sentence I'm getting a major supporting detail. If the essay is organized in a special way, maybe we're going to be talking about reasons, causes, and factors are other examples of keywords that let me know an important detail is coming in the next sentence. If I've been talking about one major detail for a long time, And then all of a sudden, you hear however, on the other hand, or in contrast, especially in a compare-contrast essay, you're almost certainly getting another major supporting detail. Furthermore, moreover, next, also, and in addition. Those are also indicators that a major supporting detail is coming. Now, most of these could also be used for minor supporting details, so you have to be careful and pay attention to the context. Figure out whether or not this minor supporting detail you're reading answers a who, where, what, when, why type of question for the thesis or the major supporting detail you just read. Now, there are specific keywords that almost always mean a minor supporting detail. Here they are. For example, an example is, those are really, really specific. They're right at the bottom of that triangle, incredibly microscopic. For instance, to be specific, to illustrate, and that is. These are all great keywords that let you know, hey, that's a minor supporting detail, not a major supporting detail. Hardly ever see those in major supporting details. So, let's go ahead and go over some quick examples and some quick exercises, and I'll show you how these keywords and minor supporting details and major supporting details work together. Everything you're reading here is like one big paragraph that's taken out of a larger essay. So there's no thesis, but there is major supporting details. In general, the humanities approach has concerned itself with the question of what is the meaning of made through video games. Okay? So we kind of got a question here, and I think that we know that we're going to be talking about the humanities and their approach to ludology and games and video games. So, researchers have investigated the various roles of video games in people's lives. So this is answering a who question, but it's answering a who question of, well, which humanities scholars? Who are the humanities scholars that are studying video games? And now we have, for example, Consolvo explores how players choose to play video games than they buy. Now we got other researchers, so that's a contrast keyword letting me know another detail's coming, have focused on understanding video games within culture. Specifically, minor supporting detail, Brenda Laurel's book, Computers as Theater, is one popular example of this. So, I'd probably say that maybe this right here, what I'm underlining, those are minor supporting details in this very brief essay. Over here, what I'm circling, those are probably major supporting details in this same very short essay. Notice, by the way, that I'm annotating and I'm using underlines, highlights, and circles to kind of give myself a clue as to what's important. When you guys annotate your own papers and your own readings, you can use stars, circles, different color highlights, whichever you prefer, whatever works for you. You don't have to follow this method, but I find that this method is particularly helpful. Example number 2. The industry approach, on the other hand, so we're not talking about the humanities anymore, we're talking about the industry, is concerned about methodology in creating the next great game. That is, they look for discrete steps and common elements that are great in video games. So, what do we got so far? We got that is, which is normally minor supporting detail, but it could also be an important definition. So, maybe we're getting an important definition to what methodology means. Let's continue on. For instance, keyword, game writers decide what kind of story fits for a specific genre. Additionally, they will test an early version of the game on a test audience in a laboratory setting. The industry is not concerned about abstract theories, but proven methods to make a game successful. So let's digest this up. Do we have one major supporting detail, or 2, or 3? Let's kind of look closely at this. I think that is right here, isn't really a minor supporting detail. It's giving me a definition of this important word here, methodology. because I've just read this thing concerned about the methodology in making a great game, but maybe I don't know what methodology is. So this writer is giving us a clue. So I don't really think of this is a minor supporting detail. I think this is letting us know what the major supporting detail is. For instance, this definitely sounds like a minor supporting detail because it's supporting this right here. Additionally. Now, what does additionally mean? Remember, that could mean major supporting detail or minor supporting detail. So what is it here? Well, ask yourself, am I getting different information about methodology? Am I getting another example of methodology? Or have I stopped talking about methodology? So let's keep reading. They will test an early version of the game on a test audience. This sounds like more of those discrete steps to make sure that a game is good. So I definitely think that this right here is another minor supporting detail. Then here we got the industry is not concerned about abstract theories, but proven methods to make a game successful. So maybe this last sentence could be just kind of a sum up of everything that we've been talking about so far, but I think that this is kind of reiterating the contrast with the humanities approach to ludology. So, what is annotation? Well, turns out I've actually already been demonstrating that for you. Annotation is simply writing like crazy in your books. Now, I do emphasize your books here because I would prefer that you do not annotate in a library book or a high school textbook. If you don't own the book, you really shouldn't be annotating in it. But it turns out you need to practice annotating because when you're in college, you buy all your own textbooks and they belong to you. And so you can annotate them like crazy and just go nuts and then sell them back to the university at the end of the semester. Also, if you remember from the writing course, this movement right here, this movement of your arm and your hands as you're reading, helps keep your brain active. And so that'll help you learn in a more interactive sense when you're reading material, especially if that material seems boring or uninteresting to you. Just moving your right hand, or if you're a lefty, your left hand, will help keep your brain active. Also, annotating is going to help you study for tests later. If you have a textbook that you own or a book that you own, and you've highlighted everything and you need to study for the test, you'll know exactly where to look for those very specific questions that you know are going to be on the test, and that'll make studying so much simpler. So, why should you annotate? Well, first off, if you learned a new word like methodology, go ahead and write out a synonym in the margin notes of whatever it is you're reading, or highlight the definition. Either way, if you learn a new word while you're reading something, go ahead and write it down. If you found a major supporting detail, well, you could do like I just demonstrated for you, and you could maybe underline it, or you can circle it, or you can put little stars around it, or you can write MSD next to it. Whatever you think will work best for you is what you should use. Hey, wait a minute. What if you're reading something and the thesis isn't said, it isn't status? Well, that'd be kind of important. What you'd do then is you'd actually have to write down what you think it should be. Remember, a lot of essays you read won't have the thesis explicitly stated for you, but they will give you a topic and they will give you major supporting details. From then, you kind of have to fill in part of the triangle on your own. Maybe you're doing that research paper for the writing course, or maybe you're doing a research paper for your English course. Well, if you got something that you know will just make your paper awesome and make your teacher love you, why not circle it? Or put a bookmark, or write down next to it, must put in paper. Remember, annotating is going to make your books look crazy. And in a couple lessons, we're actually going to learn about what it means to make a book your own. And then we'll be annotating like crazy in books that we do own. So, Your assignment is to do this. First, read your sample essays. In the first two, you're just going to answer questions. But this third one, really make sure you print it out, read it once, and then read it again and annotate like crazy. And you know what else might help if you really want to go the extra mile? Go ahead and just do a little bit of research, find a magazine article or a blog post on a subject that interests you, and read it and annotate that too. What you have here on educator.com is something that's set up specifically for annotating, so that might be easiest, but don't be afraid to go the extra mile and find something else that interests you. And just go ahead and keep doing that with educator.com.